But Vinny Perth is with us this morning. Vinny, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
We may as well pick up off what Richard was saying there, that ultimately in the Luxembourg game in particular, it was all very predictable. And in fairness, Stephen Kenny identified this. He was saying that in the first half, the distance between the Luxembourg centre-backs and their centre-forwards was never stretched, that we didn't get in behind them at all. That clearly wasn't the game plan. Why did it happen, though?
Why did it happen? Because I suppose players didn't do the job properly. Whether that's down to coaching or whether that's down to the players, ultimately we don't know. But the setup of the team, like I was on the other day and we spoke about the whatever you want to call it, 3-5-2, whatever system you want to talk about. And away from home against Serbia, to a point it worked. The three at the back makes you more defensively sound. We have a coach in now from Chelsea who's linked to Tuchel, and I presume part of the thinking has to be, I'm not saying he made the decision, but I presume his coaching experience with that Chelsea first team means that that's part of why we've moved to the three at the back, or at least part of why we, or certain his coaching methods or when he's speaking to the players has to be coming through in the team. But that didn't come out on the pitch. It wasn't good enough. And I think, and obviously from the coaching head on me and all of that stuff, I researched it. Gavin Bazuna's passing the other night, he gave the ball to Kieran Clark 11 times from restarts. The next player was Dara O'Shea, which was 4 times. He only gave it to others once or twice. He never went long. So straight away, that's the start of the process. So the ball is going down our left-hand side. So Dara O'Shea's biggest pass, or the amount of times he passed the ball next, was to Enda Stevens. Enda Stevens' next pass, or highest amount of passes, if I'm explaining myself properly here, was to Kieran Clark. And the next in line was Josh Cullen. And Josh Cullen's most passes was to Kieran Clark. So that tells you we created a triangle in our final third, or our defensive third, between Clark, Stevens and Josh Cullen. And that means we were bogged down on one side and we were slow and predictable. And I heard Richard's interview, and I think me and him have argued this all weekend long in terms of the rights and the wrongs of systems and everything else. But it's very hard for me to counter him when it's backed up statistically. Like, there was no switches of play and quick switches. Josh Cullen, as effectively our number 6 or our playmaker, never once passed the ball to Matt Doherty, our opposite wing back. Not once in the game. According to the statistics, now watch the match back in case I missed one pass or somebody missed a pass, and I don't see it. So when you get that style of play, then you're in big trouble. You're predictable. You're easy. David Moylan made the point the other day. As a midfielder, I played a midfielder. David obviously played at a higher level. If stuff is happening in front of you, it's so much easier to defend against it. So much easier to take a good starting position. And Ireland tactically were really poor in their build-up play, and they were too predictable, too slow, and it was just easy for Luxembourg and allowed them grow into the game. And then when the key moment came, they were able to take the chance. We were just too predictable. It was really poor.
How do you fix it in the middle of the game? What could we have done kind of at half-time or 60 minutes in?
Well, we didn't get the ball. I would have spoken to Sean many times about number 10s. Number 10, the importance of number 10. Alan Brown, I think, is our best number 10. Anything we've done good, like he should have scored in the playoff game. He scored against Serbia. Anything we've done well, I think it's been through Alan Brown more or less. Yes, Robbie Brady came on the other day and made a real impact after 1 minute. But beyond that, to be fair, Robbie dropped too deep and he just didn't have the legs. He looks like he's struggling at the moment. But you've got to play through Alan Brown. You've got to play through your number 10. And the difference with this system is that if you play three at the back has been criticised now, and I understand that because the result wasn't good. Most teams, especially possession-based teams, I would have spoke to you about Liverpool playing as a 3 normally they would get, when they're at their best, they get the centre midfielder to come in and make a back three. And in possession or starting to play, playing in the three isn't a bad thing. The problem is your fullbacks. Your fullbacks have to be higher up the pitch. And I was trying to think overnight how I can equate that for people to understand. If you remember when Manchester United were knocked out of the Champions League to RB Leipzig, you can see the 2 goals. The first away from home. First goal was scored by Angelino, who is the left wing back for RB Leipzig. The second goal was scored by Hamed, who is the right wing back, from a cross from the left wing back. If you want to know how to play with 3 at the back or even 3 in possession, then watch RB Leipzig. They're just brilliant at it. And our wing backs didn't do enough. They didn't get forward. They didn't get enough crosses in the box. Why I brought up Chelsea is because we have a Chelsea coach in our national setup now. And normally someone like Reece James, when they played Atletico, he crossed the ball 11 times from the right wing back position. Matt Doherty didn't cross the ball 11 times or anything like it. He only played 45 minutes, albeit, but he wasn't brave enough. He wasn't high enough up the pitch. And our 2 in midfield of Cullen and Knight, as much as Knight started the game really well in terms of energetic and getting around the place, never gave us a platform. It should have been 1 in midfield. Cullen bouncing the ball out, as I said, and going out the other side. People talk about ticky-tack football. If you ever watch videos of Pep Guardiola, he'll be on the training ground and it'll be short, and out the other side. And we see it with this Manchester City team. They play with the ball with 3 at the back. And they bring Cancelo into midfield. And it's short, and go out the other side and get 1v1s with the wide players. We don't do that. We didn't do that against Luxembourg. And how you fix it? Enda Stevens, of his average position on the ball, was deeper against Luxembourg than it was away to Serbia. His performance level dropped off that much that there's no chance. He should have been 10 yards actually higher because he was home and he was playing against Luxembourg. And the 2 fullbacks hurt us too much, just too much.
On that mention of João Cancelo there, the way he plays for Manchester City, like it was noticeable when Ireland created their 1 really good opportunity of the game on Saturday night. Enda Stevens cuts in and picks up a midfield position. Why didn't they do that more?
I don't know. It's a brilliant point, and I never know. I remember when it happened, because listen, I've researched Cancelo's position, and sometimes I talk here and I give out different things. If anyone wants to see some of the research on Cancelo, reach out to me. It's there. I have a whole sort of thing in it. But what that does is it also allows you, first of all, to be defensively set up if the ball breaks down. But it makes the opposition think. It makes them think and react. Again, going back to David Moyler's point, all of a sudden, Luxembourg winger has to take a new position after what Stevens done there. And as I said to you, Stevens' most popular pass the other night by a country mile was to Clark. It was backwards. So we kept the ball fine, and our passing stats have gone through the roof. But that's where we've become a possession-based team. So the point you make is brilliant. That pass into Enda Stevens, I think it was from Seamus Coleman, found him in the pocket, in the midfield, and we go and create something. I just don't know why we didn't do that more. We're home to Luxembourg, and whether the blame of this, and I said the other day, I back Stephen, but when there was criticism, we have to criticize. Whether the blame lies at his door, I don't know. But the players didn't go onto the pitch and do enough. Whether it was them or the manager, we don't know unless we're in that group. Just wasn't good enough from our fullbacks.
Part of me, and this is a completely intangible thing, Ron O'Gara talks a lot about confidence, and obviously he's kind of seen the transformation of his own team to being a confident team now, and operated in those sports environments where if any of the goals that we've missed from 5 yards or 3 yards or 2 yards have gone in over the last 12 months, the team feels differently about itself. Like if that brilliant move that we've just been speaking about results in a goal, then you suspect that everybody automatically just becomes a better player by moving forward 10 yards and suddenly having the confidence. And
yeah, Yeah, so that's where the old guard, and I can take on some of them at different stages, and people say, "Well, who's Vinny's never played in the World Cup?" I can only speak tactically, of course I can, but that's where they have a point, right? So if the first goal goes in or the first chance goes in, it's brilliant play. I think Jason Knight, who started the game really well, and Josh Cullen, for argument's sake, I think their level of performance goes up another notch or two if that goal goes in. Why? It breathes confidence into you. You're a bit more. You're 1-0 up, by the way, and it's a little bit. Yeah, we're at it. We can get going. We can play here. The difference is that goal doesn't go in, and there's that sense of pressure around the place. Just, we need a goal. This is Luxembourg. I mean, rightly, but Seamus Coleman's like, we're embarrassed and all of that stuff. Like, this result has hurt the players. So goals change games. They change people's career. They change everything. People forget it come the end of the season. But if you remember Liverpool, the great season they had, the ball bounces off Pickford's crossbar, and Divock Origi scores a header from a yard. Meant they win a game, and it gives the momentum to go on and win and help them win a league. I'm not saying that goal doesn't go in, but momentum stopper that chance was in the 94th minute. That's sport at the highest level. That's why I brought up before that if you think of the Irish rugby team, Eddie Jones is now fighting to keep his job, while the Irish head coach Andy Farrell isn't, because one game swings everything. And now we're down to that stage where tonight's so important for our international manager that the old guard are making about the older players. I think, to be fair, Jeff Hendrick probably over Jason Knight the other night. As much as I want to see the young players coming through, Jeff Hendrick has more experience. He's been there, done that. He's played at a higher level and may have been able to stay more in the moment for longer than what Jason Knight was. And that's the point. And I think Jason Knight is going to be a real star, but he's not there yet, and he hasn't got that international experience or top-end experience yet. And sorry, that's a long-winded way of saying that's why big moments change people's careers. They change games, and they change people's performance. And to be honest with you, I don't think enough is being made of it. I just can't understand why Collins hasn't scored that chance. I know he made decent enough contact and it hits the keeper's legs, but we should be scoring that. It's less than 6 yards out, side foot, send it back where it came from, side of net, and 1-0 up, and I think everyone relaxes then, and we go on and we're much better. So
maybe the reason he didn't score is because he's not really playing a lot of first team football at the moment. He's coming off the bench, and his own confidence is low as well, and it's kind of this horrible multiplier effect of a bunch of players not fully fit, trying to evolve into a new style of play for the national team with players. In Seamus Coleman's case, he said he was meeting some of them for the very first time because he's been unavailable for various reasons over the last while. So it's a horrible sequence. Look, we're obviously talking micro, short term here in terms of the game at the weekend and what happens tonight, and we'll be able to analyse what happens tonight afterwards as well. I did want to just start this conversation now because it's actually a much broader, longer conversation. I think one that we're all going to be having in great detail over the next few weeks. Miguel Delaney tweeted out the piece that he wrote 6 or 7 years ago, which detailed how Irish football had been struggling over the last decade, and bear in mind, so it's 6 or 7 years ago, so that's 17 years ago, to get to grips with the throughput of players, and how English football was no longer going to be a release valve for us or a safety valve to bring our best players through. And I just wanted to get your opinion on how we are currently doing at bringing young players through, because it's clear when we look at the age group of the team, there's that bunch of young players who have been given game time, who all would have played with Stephen underage and probably aren't quite ready yet to be the mainstays of a national side. There's one player in his early to mid-20s, and then everybody else is 29 or older. So there's a whole generation of footballers who haven't come through. Is that over? Are we actually okay because those 20-year-olds are coming through, or is that a bit of a fluke that we've had some 20-year-olds get some first-team experience?
No, it's certainly not a fluke. I mean, what happened at the 21s wasn't all down to Stephen Kenny in terms of those players coming through. There's no doubt about it. But what he did was he skipped a couple of players and he went a little bit younger, and he made a team out of 21s. And to be honest, his brilliant management style brought those players through for us. Yes, it seems too early, or in Troy Parrott's case, for obvious reasons, the injuries and club form, it's too early because he hasn't played enough games. But like, we have this amnesia, I think, that the last 4.5 years didn't happen. It did. I mean, the only argument I can make is people stopped going to the Aviva Stadium. If I was running a local team and I needed 25 tickets, I could have got them for free and brought all the players with me, no problem. I mean, people stopped going under Martin O'Neill, under Mick McCarthy, because it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough on the eye. Now, remember, I'm making that comment, and we've just lost to Luxembourg, so I'm not defending anybody. What happened the other night is just not acceptable, and there has to be now a real reaction to it. I said there has to be progress throughout Stephen's campaign. It isn't just good enough to bring players through, get them experience, and the form and the team not be good enough and no progress. So we have to see real progress between now and the end of the campaign if Stephen has to continue in the job. I accept that, and I always did. I think that was fair. But on the wider point, like, just one example is, do people, and this is why I have a problem with people sitting in Sky Sports studio who can make comments about Irish football, whether it's Cascarino or whoever else. I'm not personally criticising them, but the difference where that and where I get criticised, Vinny who is he, sure, all of that stuff. Like, I stood on the cop watching Jack's last match. I was there when McIntyre scored. I sang the Fields of Athenroy in Poznan as well, right? But I also completely and utterly understand how Gavin Bazuna became an Irish international, right? Shamrock Rovers made a massive investment, first of all in their youth academy, second of all in their training facilities. They sent that kid to school to help him in a leaving cert. They sent him to school in Ashfield College and allowed him to train full-time. They then sold that player for $500,000 to Manchester City, and then he was gone on loan, and they put him into his first team to allow that sale to go through, or to give him that platform for that sale to go through. And now he's played first-team football for Ireland and made a success of it. What Shamrock Rovers did has to be replicated by everybody else. It's not. Kevin's are doing a brilliant job, and it's up to Bowes to take them players, and they do to a certain point. But the investment Shamrock Rovers made, and that only happened, by the way, in the last 18 months, 2 years. So the fixes are there, but you've got to support these clubs. You've got to support them. I live in Tala all my life. What we do is we give St. Grahar 250 grand to finish their AstroTurf. We give St. Mark's 175,000. We give 5, 6, 7, 10 clubs a couple of $100 grand here, and the local council gets their votes, or the TDs and all that stuff. And we end up spending 3-4 million, all these different clubs who have just average facilities. Instead of getting together and building one super facility in the middle of Tala with 4 or 5 AstroTurf pitches, 3 or 4 grass, whatever, and say, right, here we go. He's all playing that one area. And no, we don't. We just chicken feed and spread the money out here, there, and everywhere. And if you want an example of how it's done, go to Shamrock Rovers, see what they've done with their goalkeeper, see how they got him into the first team, and see the results of it there the other night against Luxembourg. Yes, it won't always be that easy, but the plan is there. It just needs some money. They need backing, and Rovers need to be pushed and say, you can't do that in a one-off. We want to see more for the money we invest in you. But that's the only club anywhere near the facilities capable of doing it. And even that, their facilities are just one AstroTurf that we're trying to compete with other nations. It's just nowhere near it.
That is the problem. Like the other nations have sat back and strategically thought about this over a long period of time. We've seen the progress that Iceland have made, and Iceland has half the population that Luxembourg have made. And now Luxembourg have decided that they were going to invest in their local facilities and keep players until they were 17 or 18 and then send them off to other leagues around Europe. And lo and behold, they have a guy who plays in the Champions League and that guy scores in a game against us, and we don't have anybody playing in the Champions League at the moment. In terms of where we are with the relationship between the FAI and the youth system and the role of Rude Doctor, and again, I realise that like this is a proper hour-long conversation. We don't have a full hour this morning to talk about it, but is that relationship between, say, him and Shamrock Rovers and Kevin's and Bows, is that clear? Do we have a does the pyramid at least look like a pyramid now?
It does. Whether it's all correct and right, we don't know. I mean, what we did in Ireland was we said to the likes of Cherry Orchard, who developed hundreds of League of Ireland or hundreds of players capable of playing in England and a hell of a lot of Irish internationals. Someone like Cherry Orchard, we said to them, listen, great job, lads. Thanks very much. Good luck to you. We don't need you anymore. We're going to get St. Pat's to do it in your area. Or we said the same to Crumlin United, who developed Robbie Keane. So if they're good enough to develop Robbie Keane or Irish internationals at Cherry Orchard, they're not good enough anymore. And we've just got rid of them. We didn't marry them into clubs. And Kevin's, to be fair to them, stood their ground and didn't go away and ended up linking with Bowles. Part of that, some people in Bowles would counter argument, but part of that was because Bowles didn't have a setup capable of, or a youth setup, so it made sense. But we've just left clubs like Cherry Orchard and said, oh, grand, so 40 years of experience of developing young players and internationals, it's just gone. Thanks very much. Crumlin United, gone. And the schoolboy setup then has been decimated as a result of it. The DDSL has behaved disgracefully as well, but at the same time, the whole league has been ripped apart. Anyone that's played football at any sort of decent level has come through, or anyone surrounded, through the DDSL. All Ireland champions generally were based out of DDSL. That whole thing has been ripped apart. And I don't think Rude is engaged with them clubs well enough and people within the FAI. And they've left them. It should have been forced for the likes of Cherry Orchard to have to link up with a League of Ireland club. League of Ireland clubs, we're doing better now. They're genuinely doing better. But they aren't good enough yet, all of them, to run the whole academy all the way through. We see the money it costs at Shamrock Rovers to do it. And they should have been forced to link up with them. Home Farm has just been, Belvedere, they've just been left behind. Yes, Shelbourne then over that part of the city in Dublin, go on and create a whole schoolboy setup from under nines all the way up, which takes years and years to develop. And you've got Home Farm and Belvedere within their door, and they weren't forced to marry up together. That makes no sense to me. I'm not being critical of anyone in Shelbourne or Home Farm, but the FAI should have had a long-term view of this and kept these clubs on board and the expertise that they have. Like Richard Dunn was developed at Home Farm. Troy Pard was developed at Belvedere. And we've just thrown them aside. So and by the way, Rude Doctor has to create elitism. We have to have these national leagues, the under 15s, 17s, 19s. They're the way forward. But we've just taken out people who've been doing the job for 40, 50 years and just got rid of them and made clubs restart again. And to be fair to Bowles and Rovers, they're the only two clubs, I would say, doing it right. And not to say the likes of Sligo are bringing through John Kenny, through there on the right side of, there is things happening in pockets around the country, but there's no joint up thinking. And I think the engagement that Rude schoolboy clubs football would say is non-existent. That's what they tell me. I wasn't at that cold face long enough to know what's the truth, but the likes of Cherry Orchard would tell you they've just been dismissed. They even tried recently, this whole Dublin County tried to get into the League of Ireland First Division. Cherry Orchard were willing to provide them with the schoolboy setup for their club, which meant under 13, 15, 17 National League, we had another 20 to 25 players playing at that elite level. And we made the decision that Dublin County, for whatever reason, right or wrong, we weren't going to do it. So we have a real problem, and there's so much infighting I don't see it being fixed anytime soon, and that's the concern. And we're being left behind by Luxembourg and Iceland and all of these nations that they're way ahead of us.
Yeah, no, look, and I think this is an important conversation, and I know that we weren't going to get into too much of the nitty-gritty, but they're all very interesting points, and I know that when we put this out later, we will get contact from the people involved in those clubs and the people involved in the League of Ireland clubs. So the conversation at least has begun, and if anybody wants to get involved in that, the hashtag is OTB AM. Did you want to ask one last question?
Just, I guess, back to the national team, Vinny, when it comes to Stephen Kenny's immediate future, like Roy Barrett's come out and said that they're going to keep him until the end of the campaign, that there's no immediate danger to his role. Does a defeat tonight change that at all? Does it put him in any bit of jeopardy, do you think?
Well, yes, it does, because it's a result business. He will know that. Do I think if he's sacked or if he loses, he should be sacked? No, I don't think so. I think he should finish the campaign, but I think it puts him under massive pressure. Again, watching finding about Jack Charlton, we live in a world now where I looked up the whole thing around Paul McGrath sitting on the bus. Imagine that happened now. Jesus, I couldn't. I'd fear for what would have happened and the whole reaction to it. It's going to be a massive reaction to tonight's result. He's in a no-win situation. If he wins 2-0 tonight, people will go, see, he should have won anyway. And if he loses 2-0, they'll call for his head. No-win situation. The FAI had no choice but to back him. I think, for me, we've got to take a long-term view. Whether Stephen's the right man or not, that's up for other people to decide. But unless we take a long-term view of 2, 4, 6 years with a manager and let him build this team, well, then we're going nowhere, and we're going nowhere fast. So it's a difficult one to answer. Personally, I don't wish any bad on him. I hope he survives this, but he's got to win football matches there. That's the key to it all.
Vinny, always brilliant. Good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.